Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to break down a power play that just sent shockwaves through the global economy. It's this incredible story about why the US dollar suddenly shot up, gold totally tanked, and how this all connects to this massive battle for the future of money itself. All right, so let's jump right into the event that had everyone talking. You might have seen the headlines and thought, oh, just another market correction, right? But nope. The source material we're looking at shows this was a very deliberate move, like a calculated play in a high-stakes game of economic chess. Okay, get this. The source points to a massive drop. We're talking $344 per ounce for gold. I mean, that is not just a bad day on the market. That's a huge signal, right? It's telling us that some really big players are pulling their money out of what they used to consider safe. So, the billion-dollar question, or maybe trillion-dollar question, is where's all that cash flowing to? So let's get into our first section here. We're going to unpack how this was a very intentional power move by the US, basically a way to flex its economic muscles and send a message to the world that, yeah, the dollar is still king. And at the center of all this, you've got the US Federal Reserve, the Fed. They're the central bank of the United States. And trust me, when they make a decision, it doesn't just ripple, it creates waves across the entire global economy. So the source lays out this fascinating four-step playbook the Fed used. It's pretty slick. First, the Fed chairman comes out and basically signals, hey, everything's stable, we're confident. That's all it takes. Global investors hear that, they get their confidence back, and they start pulling money out of those safe havens, like gold. And boom, they pour it right back into the US. And what happens? The dollar's value shoots up. It's just a classic textbook move, really, showing you how much power a central bank has. Okay, but here's where it gets complicated. Just when it seems like the Fed has got this all figured out, this huge wild card gets thrown into the mix, the potential return of Donald Trump. You see, his whole economic philosophy is a total 180 from the current strategy. And that's stirring up a whole lot of uncertainty in the markets. And the source really breaks down this clash of ideas. It's like two completely different game plans. On one side, you have the current strategy. Keep the dollar strong, which pulls in foreign investment. But on the other side, a potential Trump administration would likely want a weaker dollar. Why? To make U.S. exports cheaper and more competitive. But, and this is a big but, a weaker dollar can also signal economic instability to the rest of the world. And this is where we zoom out to the global view. Because believe me, other world powers are watching this very closely. The source is pretty clear. Analysts in both China and Europe are looking at this potential shift in U.S. policy and seeing it as a sign of weakness, an opening. And that's where the story gets so much bigger, right? This isn't just some internal U.S. political drama. That uncertainty, it creates a potential opening in this massive global power struggle. And we're talking about the two heavyweights here, the U.S. and China, going head-to-head for economic dominance. This really boils it down to the core conflict. You've got the US, whose goal is to keep the dollar as the world's #1 currency. I mean, that gives them a massive economic advantage. And then you have China, who's pushing hard to weaken the dollar's grip, hoping to create a world with multiple major currencies, where, of course, they have a lot more say. So how is China doing this? Well, the source lays out their game plan, and it's got multiple parts. They're actively building new alliances, teaming up with countries like Iran to do business completely outside the dollar system. They're creating their own payment systems, and they are pushing hard to get their own currency, the yuan, used in global trade, especially for big-ticket items like energy. This isn't a quick move. It's a patient, long-term strategy to slowly chip away at the dollar's dominance. So you've got this intense rivalry, this trust vacuum starting to form in the global financial system. And that, right there, brings us to our final section. Because that vacuum, it's creating the perfect opening for a totally new kind of player, one that exists outside the control of any single country, Bitcoin. The source makes a really compelling point here. Our whole idea of what money is changing. Think about it. Back in 1971, the US ditched the gold standard. That pushed us into the era of fiat currency, basically money that's valuable just because the government says it is. It's not backed by a pile of gold somewhere. And now, well, it looks like we're standing on the edge of the next big shift, the age of digital currency. And the source calls Bitcoin digital gold, which actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Just like real gold, its value doesn't come from a government's promise. It's decentralized, so no one person or group is in charge. And here's the kicker. Its supply is hard-coded, it's mathematically limited.
It is scarce by its very design.
And this is where you can really see the differences side by side. Let's talk scarcity. We know gold is finite, but we don't really know how much is left in the ground. With Bitcoin, it's set in stone, or, well, in code. There will only ever be 21 million. That's it. And then look at who controls it. Most of the world's gold, it's sitting in the vaults of central banks. Bitcoin, though, is spread out across a global network. That's a huge shift in who's holding the keys to the kingdom.
Okay, and if you thought it couldn't get more interesting, check this out. The source mentions that the US is potentially looking at a move that would just completely change the game. We're talking about directing the Federal Reserve to actually hold Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. Can you imagine? That would be an absolute earthquake, a massive signal to the world about how the most powerful economy is thinking about digital assets and how they might even use them in this great power competition. So let's put all the pieces together. You have the Fed making a strategic play to boost the dollar, you've got political uncertainty in the US shaking things up, and you have this escalating economic rivalry with China. What does that all create? According to the source, it's the perfect storm for the rise of something completely new, a new asset class, with Bitcoin leading the charge as a potential store of value that isn't controlled by any single government.
And all of this leaves us with one final massive question. In a world where the old financial rules are being challenged from every direction, what is the world going to trust as a true store of value? The answer to that question isn't just about what's in your bank account. It's about who's going to hold the power in this century.